Welcome back to the post-morning tea session. Mount Ridley is advancing what is looking like Western Australia's first major clay-hosted rare earth project. As one of very few known outside of China, the Mount Ridley Rare Earth Project has the potential to be strategically very important. To tell us more, we're joined by Technical Manager David Crook. Welcome, David.
Thanks very much, Jerry. So the Mount Ridley project, it really is a resurgence story. So it's a very well-known conference for us. The Mount Ridley project initially started off as a nickel sulfide play in the one of the basins off the Fraser Ranges. But as a consequence of some work done by consultants, we've realised within the Eucla Basin that overlies it, there's the potential to host quite a major swathe of rare earth elements. The mineralisation style is ionic clay. That's the style that we believe it is. That still isn't 100% proven, and we're working towards that, but all of the signs so far suggest that it is that. We've got a very large tenement portfolio, over 3,000 square kilometres out there, and it's predominantly 100% owned. The mineralisation that we know of, which has come from reassaying the nickel sulfide work, extends for over 25 kilometres in strike and at least 3 kilometres wide. So it's pretty easy to do some maths on that, and you end up with a number with about 8 zeros on it. And then away from that, in other areas of the basin, there are other rare earth occurrences, and we believe that they're all interrelated. So we think that what we've got is an Eocene-aged basin. We've probably had rare earths flowing into that basin somehow or other. It's been an acidic environment. There are clay measures and lots of sulfides in the system. That's caused these elements, these strand lines, where we don't actually know where the rare earths have come from particularly yet, but to break down, to remobilise like a hydromorphic layer. And we're in the business of trying to figure out the size of it and what we're going to do with it. I should say that with this style of deposit, because it's the first for Western Australia certainly, you are constantly looking for analogues, and the best one that we've come up with at the moment is the Makuti project in Uganda. Other presenters on rare earths have been telling you about this kind of thing, I'm sure. Very much an environment where climate change is affecting the way people think and do business. The ability to implement a green strategy requires rare earth elements. And of course, the rare earths are one of the critical rare metals that the American strategy is outlined as well. So put it into simple terms, there are 14 elements plus yttrium that are classed as rare earths. There are a few others that are really pretty esoteric. Of those, there are critical rare earths. There are 5 of them. Those are listed there. And the big thing with the rare earths is they make the strongest magnets. And so if you want to go to electric turbines, if you want to have electric motors that are efficient, you need rare earths, you need strong magnets. So it's as simple as that, really. At the moment, about 30% of the world's rare earths go into magnets. At the moment, the supply of rare earths will match the demand for rare earths. But of course, that's not presuming that there's going to be a lot more wind turbines and there's going to be a lot more cars out there. So just for a bit of fun, I did some reading, and apparently it takes 216 kilos of neodymium per megawatt hour. West Australia currently generates 40% of its energy from clean sources, which means if you wanted to knock out Western Australia's hydrocarbon-based electricity production, there's another 1,400 windmills required, and that's presuming this, the wind keeps blowing. So there's plenty of room there, of course, in WA alone, let alone the rest of the world, the rest of Australia. Production of rare earths is all about China, and that's where things get interesting with this political segregation about the distribution of minerals, and China putting some levels of embargo on the export of rare earths anyway. At the moment, Australia generates about 10% of the world's rare earths. So I suppose I'll just reiterate one thing. Most of the rare earth projects are hard rock, And the hard rock ones are not necessarily big, and they can be quite problematic to treat. And they tend to be weighted to the light rare earths. The heavy rare earths tended to come from ionic clays in China, and they haven't been well described elsewhere. In the last couple of years, as I said, there's the Makutu project in Uganda, which is in fact very similar to ours. There's AR3's project in South Australia, which is also looking very encouraging, and there are one or two others around the place. But I suppose putting our position forward, we're located about 35 kilometres north of Esperance, so we're right beside the main road and the railway line and the gas pipeline. We are very blessed with good infrastructure. We've stayed away from the farmlands down there. The farmlands are very productive with canola and wheat and things like that. So it's probably, it's going to be a very difficult road to hoe to do anything on a big scale on that kind of land. We're near Esperance Airport. It's a great place to be operating. I said at the start that we were following up on nickel sulfide drilling, traverses of air core drilling right through this area here. So from there to there, that's in excess of 25 kilometres. From there to there is about, it's over 3 kilometres wide and places up to 5 kilometres wide. There are more rare earths we know about up here. There are more rare earths over here. I've been led to believe today that there are rare earths up here. So this is this Eucla Basin kind of area that we're talking about. We start to see the granites crop out through here. So we've got 25 by 3 kilometres. That equates to 2% of our tenement holding. So we think the ability to grow this project substantially exists as a real deal. So the way that we're approaching this, it's not about the tonnes. The tonnes are given. There's going to be a lot of tonnes out there. There's probably going to be 9 zeros and you pick a digit to go in front of it. So then it's going to be about how shallow it is, how cost effective it is to mine, how close to your processing facility it is. What we envisage is Esperance becoming almost like an international hub for rare earth generation. Then it comes down to the distribution of critical rare earths to the other rare earths. It comes down to how easy it is to get them out, because one thing about the ionic clays, you've got to be able to get them off really easily, otherwise you're wasting your time. So the first piece of work that we did, let's have a look at it first. These things just, Eucla basins like that. The grey is the Proterozoic, it sits on top of that. Emily in the audience is doing a lot of work on putting that together. The only reason the polygon stops there is because that's where the drilling stops. But from there to there is over 1 kilometre wide. You can see good thicknesses, good numbers. A lot of the holes didn't penetrate because these clays are horrible and gluggy things. The whole point of us re-drilling some of these will be for reserves, to have a good look at the clays themselves, but just to fill in these great gaps. These holes are over 100 metres apart. Now, I'm not expecting you to even remotely look at this. I was saying that the hard rock rare earths are very difficult to treat. A lot of the mineral sands are very difficult to treat. They're in phosphates and things that are pretty much inert. So the first test we did, people said to us, how do you know that yours isn't inert? People have said to us, these things are just paleo strand lines and you're wasting your time. So the first thing that we did was run a total digestion through them. And these are the kind of numbers that we got. Nice thicknesses, nice high grades. The average grade of Makutu is 850. So that's just to put it into context. We're getting plenty that are of a good grade. These ones here, we did a weak aqua regia. The thesis was that if it was in anything that was remotely difficult to dissolve, it's not going to dissolve. So the only number I'd like you to take away from this is this column here in 70s and 80s and 90s. So we're getting very good recovery using a very low acid level, which demonstrates to us, well, in our minds anyway, that this thing isn't inert. It's going to be more inclined to be with the clays and certainly nice and soluble. The second thing is that the recoveries are pretty much right across the board. The ones that are highlighted are the ones that you want to be watching. And so the recoveries of the critical rare earths are pretty good right across the board as well. And if we look at the rest of it, is the basket of critical elements is about 50%. So that's a very good ratio of critical rare earths to overall rare earths. Now, where are we going from here? We're in vacant Crown land. We're away from the cropping ground. Nevertheless, we know that there are Aboriginal sites out there. Mount Ridley itself is a site of significance. So we're engaging with the local people there, the Talltrack people, and we're approaching it from a top-down approach. The understanding is that they'll let us know where their sacred sites are, where the dreaming paths go, the cultural sites that they know about are, and we should be able to get a fairly free run with everything else. So that's the way we're approaching that. On top of that, they can supply botany people and they can supply drilling rigs. So we're hoping that it's going to be almost like a partnership with this group down in Esperance. Concurrently, we're also doing quite a lot of work with Botanica. You probably know Jim Williams. The area does have eucalypts that are rare. However, we're finding in Western Australia, they're only rare usually because people haven't gone looking for them. But again, we'll get areas that we can stay away from, and we should be able to get on with it. As I said, tonnage isn't going to be the issue. So what we'll be able to do is exclude areas that either have cultural or botanical values, and there's going to be plenty more for us to find pockets of resources. We've reiterating that we've got the 25 by 3 kilometre strip through the middle. We're just going to do concentric circles of drilling around existing tracks to find out exactly what I was saying before, areas where the recovery is still very good and very easy to get out, areas where it's shallower, areas away from the cultural sites, and we'll build our inventory from there. So the company has in the order of $3 million of cash now, a couple of $1 million of shares in another company. We've got 2 billion oppies out there at, that are all in the money. So collectively, we've got about $7 million now of readily available cash plus 2 billion options to come in. So we're well funded for the next couple of years. And our plan then is to build this into a resource, confirm the style of mineralisation, confirm the extractive metallurgy, start doing the ionic exchange work, and we'll go from there. So just wrapping it up, the Mount Ridley Rare Earth Project has all the hallmarks of being a very large ionic clay deposit. That's the way I see it. It's in a first world jurisdiction. It's close to very good infrastructure, and the company is very well funded, and we anticipate an active project that's done in collaboration with the main stakeholders down there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Dean Tuck, MD at Dreadnought Resources, joins us now with an update on their copper, nickel, cobalt, rare earths and gold projects in the Kimberley, Gascoyne and Goldfields regions. Welcome, Dean.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming today, and for those of you online who are tuning in. Great listening to Peter Crook just there. If he can deliver WA's first cesium mine, I'm sure he can deliver the first iconic rare earth mine as well. So very impressive, very good to hear. So it's fantastic to be up here with you guys today at RIU 200th anniversary, 200th presentation. It's also an anniversary for us. It was the first conference that Dreadnought presented at last year. So very excited to be here and talk about, I guess, the future that we have ahead. We've had a very exciting year. This year is our second year in existence, and we've started to actually find some mineralization of significance. And that's really going to change our tune going forward from an exploration company the last 2.5 years. It's been, but wait, we have more, but wait, we have more, to a company that next year is going to be very focused on delivering 3 very significant programs, focused entirely on delivering our copper resources, our rare earth resources, and also our nickel resources with First Quantum. So very, very excited to talk today about what the next year looks like for us. As soon as I figure out this thingamajigger here. All right. So Dreadnought Resources, we're a junior exploration company that's getting quite large. We've just expanded our team, got a new office in Osborne Park. The dream of being a junior explorer with a warehouse and an office in it. Not too many people's dreams, but we're certainly not a lifestyle company sitting in West Perth or high rise somewhere. Board and management owns 17% of the company. We put our hands in our pocket every time we ask our shareholders to put their hands in theirs. So we are very, very attuned with our shareholders, and we are here to crystallize value for them. We have a very small, very hardworking team. I think we're all ready to have a couple of days holiday. Don't think it'll stretch into the weeks, but we'll see how we go. But we have three main projects. We floated Dreadnought in the Kimberley, our Taraji Yampi project, off limits since 1978. This year is the first year anyone's drilled undercover out there, and we've hit massive sulfide. The Gossan for that was sitting just 1 meter under black plant soil. Very exciting for us to deliver what's up there. At Mangaroon was a project in the Gascoigne that we picked up just a year ago to sort of fill in the backslide of always having 2 to 3 projects on the run, because the Kimberley, while the potential is certainly there, elephant country and unexplored, it's only accessible for general exploration for about half the year. So always wanted to have a second project on the go, and Mangaroon has certainly outperformed for us this year, throwing lots of surprises with outcropping pentlandite and chalcopyrite, which got First Quantum on board very quickly. And also recently, the rare earths, which we only uncovered a few months ago, which is across this road from Hastings. And earlier this week, after flying a very substantial mag survey, identified the carbonatite plugs that people have been exploring for the last 30, 40 years, and nothing like a new magnetic data set to highlight those things for us, which is very, very exciting. And because of that, and because of the scale of those opportunities between the nickel with First Quantum, the rare earths and the carbonatites, and the copper and cobalt, silver and gold up in the Kimberley, the Alara project, we actually brought in Peter Langworthy's OmniGeoX to manage that in the background, so that our team, the Dreadnought team, can focus wholly on delivering the programs that we think will be the company makers for us in the next year. Our strategy, as always, we are an explorer. We like living in swag, is covered in flies in the heat, delivering those first drill intercepts. There's nothing more exciting than being on the rig when you hit massive sulfide or hitting that first bit of mineralization. And that's what we live for. We maximize value by delivering that to an inferred resource, and then bringing someone in, hopefully a big brother, to either buy us out or to carry us into production. That becomes a very, very different sort of operation and different skill set and personalities. So you're not going to see me talking about building my own mine. I'm an exploration geo, not a mine developer. And that's certainly our definition of success. It's being bought out like Sirius did, selling one of our assets to the big brothers, or like we've done with First Quantum, being carried into production by a group that actually specializes and has the pockets to bring us into production. So I'll start off with Taraji Yampi. We have finished our field programs up here this year, but we are still waiting for some assays. Like I alluded to before, off limits since 1978. Roy Woodall himself was the last person to put a drill hole into the Taraji area in 1958, drilling some of the outcropping copper lodes that were discovered in 1906. And this year, I've explored lots of different places in the world, and there's not many opportunities where you have outcropping mineralization that's been completely unexplored since 1978. And actually 1958 in the Taraji area. And to be able to get out there and follow behind the legends like Roy Woodall himself and actually look at this ground is very, very exciting, and a priceless opportunity I think any geologist would love to have. And this year, a lot of our focus since 2019, since we've been able to get first boots on ground, we've traced up a lot of the known mineralization that's at Grants, discovered in 1906, worked on by Roy Woodall in 1958, rough triangle and outcropping lodes discovered by WMC, but never even assayed in 1958. And then there's a number of geophysical targets that we've done on Taraji. When we first started as Dreadnought, we had a 3 to 4 mil market cap. We had 300 grand in the bank. There wasn't a whole lot of work that we could do to get things moving. And so we focused on the easiest wins first and the biggest opportunities, which was the Taraji tenement. And I'll talk a little bit now soon. We've recently completed a mag survey over the other 3 to 4 tenements that make up the Yampi side of that. And there's going to be a lot of upside potential deploying what we've learned from drilling Taraji across the rest of the project area. So our next steps up here is that we have known mineralization. It looks like it has scale, which I'll show you in a second. At Orion and Grants, we will deliver resources on Orion and Grants. And then once the diamond rigs are finishing that program, we'll take the RC rig out and actually deploy what we've learned from drilling Taraji, drilling Orion, to try and find the other friends that are sitting in that system. So Orion itself, the red holes we released a couple of weeks ago, massive sulfide, getting some decent thicknesses and decent grades of copper, gold, silver, and cobalt. The blue holes up there are still pending. We hope to have those assays in hand any day now. So keep an eye out on that. We've confirmed mineralization down to about 120, 150 meters vertical depth, over about 240, 250 meters of strike. But we've only touched the top of that thing. So what you see there on the right, the big green blob is an inversion of the magnetic data. Our massive sulfide is very pyrrhotite rich. It is extremely magnetic, and that extends down to over 500 meters depth. The blue plate in there is the plate from our fixed loop EM survey, and the red is from the recent downhole EM surveys that we've completed. As you can see from those depths, those drill holes that are on there, which are the deepest holes we drilled, we're still at the very top of this system. It appears to be getting stronger, thicker, and better with depth, but drilling will tell, and so we'll drill that next year, because we're not here to talk about what could be. We're here to prove it as quickly as we can and deliver that resource. The other major thing that we've discovered from this round of drilling, we knew from the geophysics work that we did that the top of fresh rock was about 30 meters down. However, when you stand out there on the surface, it's all black plain soils, like Mount Isa. You know, surface geochemistry and things like that can be very, very challenging. And so our exploration to date has been dominated by geophysics, you know, bump hunting, the good old days. If you have a ground that's been off limits since 1978, you can still go bump hunting. But what we've realized is that the depth of cover out here is only 1 to 5 meters thick. So what does that mean for us? That means we can actually deploy a low impact auger drilling program to drill through that thin cover and actually screen all of our lithostructural and geophysical targets that are remaining out here before we take the RC rig out to test them. That will allow us to unlock a lot of, hopefully, new discoveries in the Taraji and Yampi area. And to paint that a bit more, on the left are 2 images of the Taraji tenement. Like I said, we've been focusing on Taraji to date. That is Orion and Grant sitting up there, not too far away from each other. You see these large structures that cut up through. One of them goes through Orion, sitting right there. We have other magnetic anomalies sitting on those structures, all under cover. We've not been able to see those at all. This is just at Taraji. Even Fuso itself, that's a 1.5 by 500 meter long magnetic anomaly. We've only put a few holes into that. We have a few sniffs on that. We can now deploy auger drilling over that to see where within that anomaly the mineralization is actually sitting, if it's there at all. But we can screen all of these targets within Taraji itself while we're drilling and delivering the resource at Orion and Grants. And then that's the Taraji tenement right there within the wider Yampi Taraji tenement package. Matt Crow, our exploration manager, and loves doing expensive lines with magnetic data, doing those interps. We're going to uncover quite a few bumps to go hunt, as well as lithostructural targets to deploy that auger on as well. So in addition to the targets that we have sitting at Taraji right now that we haven't even looked at because they're undercover, we're going to uncover quite a few more on the Yampi side. So we're really looking forward to what this drill program next year is going to deliver for us. You know, people have asked, you know, what's the mineralization style? You know, this is a fantastic geological debate sort of question. We've handed these rocks to specialists at big brother companies who are always looking at the project, academic specialists and the rest. You know, to date, I think there's about 4 Mount Isas, 2 porphyry epithermals, and 2 Beshi style VMSs. Whatever it is, I kind of don't care. I'm here to actually make the discovery, and I care about how we actually find more. And that's deploying the auger next year, which I'm most excited about. The most important thing about either one of those mineralization styles is that there's more than one. So they always occur in camps, and that's what's going to keep us focused to find more and let the academics discover what it is afterwards. So some of those targets we'll be testing, I'll briefly blow through. Grants, 800 meter long outcropping vein. Last drill program hit 10 meters at 2.3% copper on that. We'll deliver a resource on that, about 100, 150 meters vertical depth. Fuso, like I alluded to before, very large anomaly. We're getting some sniffs plugging holes into the peak magnetic anomaly. But if we go to, say, Mount Isa as one of the potential analogs for us, the mineralization is not always intimately associated with the peak magnetic high. So having to be able to deploy that auger drilling on top of that before we drill the RC rig will allow us to actually drill the proper part of these anomalies. Another one, rough triangle, which led to as well, 1.3 kilometer long lode. The top 600 meters of that running some very high copper, copper, antimony, bismuth, and silver. So a very different geochemical gradient to what we see at some of the other areas that could play into the wider system. Regardless, we're going to put holes into this and see what that looks like. So moving on to Mangaroon. Hopefully I have enough time to get through all of this. Mangaroon, similar to the Kimberley, it's a Proterozoic mobile belt. It's been unloved for a very long time, which I'm happy to talk about over a beer. However, we moved in about a year ago and pegged about 4.5 to 5,000 square kilometers of vacant ground. So it's a first mover opportunity. When we go in, as our chairman likes to say, title is vital. We go big or we go home. And so we took a dominant position in the underexplored Mangaroon belt in the Gascoyne province to see what we could find. We know from the pastoralist history that there was high-grade gold and nickel sticking out of the ground. We've already done that joint venture with the First Quantum. We're finishing that EM survey and we'll drill those goslings next year. No matter what, First Quantum's committed to drilling. And our focus now is really focusing on these rare earths. So Yin, get a few young geologists across the street from Yangibana. We're out doing the work on the gold and the rare earths. These guys want to go see if all the academics have been wrong over the last 30 years, saying that the carbonatites stop at the Lions River Fault. So saying, give them free rein. How are you going to target it? Reprocess the geophysics data with the help of Southern Geoscience. Get some thorium maps, look for the thorium anomalies in the government data. Look underneath them, looks like an ironstone. Go kick the rock. What do you find? 10% rare earth sticking out of the ground south of the Lions River Fault. We've now done multiple programs out there to map that out, and about 6 of its friends showing that these ironstones do continue south of the Lions River Fault. We've already huffed out 60 to 80 meters of that material, put it through a simple flotation flow sheet similar to what Hastings is doing next door, and we've already proven that we can produce a high-grade monazite concentrate. That's Hastings ironstones to the north. We started to see some ironstones to the south. We talked about having a similar sort of scale. If you believe in the Hastings project, where they're getting into production, they're doing great work, they've cracked a lot of the MET. We were starting to show that we had a similar scale, perhaps the other half of their mineralization. But the most important thing that came from that, and like Newmont's identified in 1991 and Newcrest when they explored the Yangibana ironstones, is that these things look like the dikes that form around the ring of a giant carbonatite plug. So these red veins that go off on the side are rare earth bearing, potentially ironstones. You also look at Hastings drilling data from 2015, look at some other work in the area, you see these high-grade niobium veins that are associated with those ironstones. Those are actually blue lines coming out. This is a classical carbonatite diagram here, straight from the academic papers. That's exactly what we started to see out here. And so we decided to fly a 50,000 line kilometer magnetic survey over this area to see if having higher resolution, more modern geophysical data could highlight these carbonatite plugs, like Mount Weld in 1966, like Cummins Range in the 1980s, 1970s with CRA, or Nolan's Bore at Erfurt in the 1990s. Magnetics is how you find carbonatite plugs. So they're distinctive features. And just earlier this week, right on the Lions River Fault, major crustal scale structure, just on our side of the tenement boundary, thankfully, we've identified 5 of these ring structures. We've been out boots on ground already. The boys are heading back out there next week. And we've already identified these things, carbonatite outcrops sitting within C3 and C4. The majority of these carbonatites are sitting undercover. And so we're really looking forward to confirming mineralization from the limited outcrop that we have. But regardless, we're going to be drilling these things next year and seeing what potential they have. Because the scale on finding a new carbonatite plug out here in a proven rare earth province is extremely exciting. Mangaroon, so we're currently finishing up these 12 to 13 line kilometers of fixed loop EM surveys, again with the help of Southern Geoscience. And we're very, very excited to hopefully finish that before Christmas and get those results out to the market. No matter what, First Quantum's drilling underneath the goslings up here. And if there's a conductor in there, that's going to be very, very exciting for us as well. So the rare earths, carbonatites, and the nickel will all be drilled early next year. So what does that work plan look like for us? We have I'm heading out to Alara to look at Peggy Sue, which is a little potential lithium-bearing pegmatites down at Alara before the OmniGeoX guys take complete control of the project, and the rest of the guys are heading up to Mangaroon to chase up those carbonatites. Next year, OmniGeoX will probably deliver a small drill program at Alara, chasing up on a few of the things that we've been talking about for the last year, while our team focuses on delivering Mangaroon, Kimberley, and then back to Mangaroon, 3 big programs next year, delivering resources and further discoveries. And of course, all this is weather and access dependent, but that's going to be our focus. And this is going to be what we focus on next year. So thank you guys very much for listening. We're going to be a very exciting year for Dreadnought in 2022. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Dean. Aruma Resources has a portfolio of strategically located gold and lithium projects in active mineral belts in WA. Managing Director Peter Schwann will today share details of the strong progress at each project. Take it away, Peter.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you to RIU and Stewie, and thank you all for attending. This story is in line with the title of the conference, and we are set for discovery. So just a corporate snapshot. We're basically market cap just around 10, cash 3+, and enterprise value about 7. The board is experienced and very stable, and we've now got our exploration manager and exploration geologist on staff for coming up for a year. So we're in a good position, and basically we're drilling we're exploring on major structures. And in that last paper, you saw the amount of power that the hydrothermal and all the fluid-driven deposits that you can find in the Pilbara. So we went chasing in the Pilbara last year. So we've got a mixture of gold and lithium to explore, and we are drilling. Where are we? We are basically focusing in Western Australia. Those of you who are familiar with our story, we had a project over in south of Canberra, the Capital Project. Very difficult to explore. We were over there in May. So we are focusing in Western Australia where you can explore. The traditional owners are very, very, very important to us. And hence I've shown you the 4 projects that we're concentrating on. The lithium project at Mount Deans is in Naju country. They have been very, very prompt in their response to doing a heritage clearance, not like our friends at the DMIRS and EPA, but we won't concentrate on that. Salmon Gums, which is south of Mount Deans, is a project that we pegged in response to the very powerful mineralisation to the north at Scotia, which is currently the really principal focus of our friends at Tulla and Pantoro. We go to the Pilbara and we've got the Melrose, which is around Paulson's, and we've got the saltwater, which is south of basically Turi Creek Station in the Pilbara, and these are both on the Nanjalgardi fault. This is a slide I just put in a few minutes ago. We are drilling. This was last week. The rig geologist was the person who's giving this presentation. So up there, it was very nice. We had 43 degrees, then it rained. My power as a rain god is not diminished in the years, but we're drilling and we are finding what we believe should be some fairly exciting assays. News flow, we've got a R&D tax return in, and we're looking at about 400 out of that, which will bring our total in 11 years to about $4.4 million returned, because we're drilling and exploring for a model, and the model is gold in sediments. And it's caught on, it's quite popular now. So we're looking, except the gold is the gold is in the sediments, but the lithium, of course, is in the lithium belt and just south. So we'll be drilling that in the new year when I can find a driller that I can hold down and force to drill for us. So the Salmon Gums, we are drilling as we speak. We've been there for a month drilling, and we'll be there for another 2 weeks, then we'll resume in the new year. We're drilling some 5,000 meters there. And I'll tell you, we are drilling gold. Torquay Newton said, drill where the gold is. And we've got old information there from Panost from 2004, 7 meters at 2.7 grams per tonne, not followed up. So we are drilling there. We've found the holes, we've got the farmers, so everything's good there. The saltwater project, we did the 2,000 metre program in about 6 days, plus 2 days of rain, and that finished up last week. Results, once again, January, February, 8 to 9 weeks turnaround. Melrose Gold Project is the one I'd love to get into. We've got some heritage surveys still awaiting. The PKKP people are very, very busy with all the iron ore and other explorers up there. We're on the list. So go down to Mount Deans, and Mount Deans is an interesting exercise. We've got old drilling here left over from Tantalum, Australia, and being good tantalum explorers, they looked for pegmatites, they assayed for tantalum, they did not assay for lithium. But the sections are good, there are RC holes, they were logged by a good geologist. And as you can see, we've got an easterly dipping pegmatite, and we've got this thick, steeply westerly dipping pegmatite. We suggest that they meet here, and there will be a cauldron or a chamber. These pegmatites up here are mica with spodumene on the selvages or the edges. We believe that this is the surface expression of the micas. There will be spodumene cauldron here. That should be tested very soon. We've got the clearance last week to do the drilling. The Salmon Gums project is a beauty. Back last year, Kevin Maloney rang me and said, have a look at the Panda discovery by Pantoro. Had a look at it. And as you know, in about May last year, we're all confined to homes with COVID, and we all learnt how to operate the 10-graph web from the West Australian Department of Mines. And what I did is I had a look at here and I traced this banded iron formation down, and there was a big block here with the northeast structures, similar here, the same stratigraphy down here. And this is all farmland. So it's, even though it's in the Esperance Noongar group, they're not very interested. There's a tiny little bit of Naju ground at the top. So that's all cleared. Those leases are granted. The POWs for hundreds of holes are approved, and we've drilled this area down here. We're looking for multiple beds, same as Scotia. And you can see here on this geological map, we can see the Scotia and all the discoveries here. And if you come around to our booth, booth 38, I'll be glad to run through this with you. We have got this material coming down. This is the Wolyena Noganya Biff. And this is the discovery hole by Panost. We have drilled this southern section where we're drilling the magnetics, where there was no soil samples. This is the old Panost soil sampling done by Louisa Lawrence, very, very well done and reported soil sampling. And they drilled these holes down here, and they got 7 meds at 2.71 with material to the north not followed up. And you can see here, these are the sections reproduced from the Panost reports. So this is this intersection here. This intersection is there. So you can see basically it's 7 meters at 2+, which I think is a pretty good start. So as I said, we are drilling gold. We will be drilling gold. The other area, which, well, by the way, we call this the thistle, and to keep the plant focus here, this is called iris, and that's multiple of lower grade. But it's in the geochem, so the geochem's working, the mags are working, and the gold assays indicate that we're going to be getting some good numbers here. We've already logged the holes, and we're doing full scan using portable XRF, and there's good arsenic and tungsten anomalies. So we're seeing what we think, and the alteration is quite powerful. So that's what we're looking for. These are the old intersections, as you can see. It's strong mineralisation. This is what we're looking for. And these are from the Tulla Pantoro announcements. And the standout here is the big fellows, the 20 plus meters at 8+ grams. That's very, very sexy as far as I'm concerned. Now we go to the Pilbara with 5 minutes left. Pilbara, I looked at the Pilbara using, I was wanting an area to peg where we had strong structures, crustal sutures. And the area to the north, Malina, De Grey was all the news, was pretty well taken up. But here we had the area around Paulson's. There was a big block that Tambora have got in here. Mount Olympus was still in the news. And a friend of mine was finding nuggets here. So we pegged this block here, went into 10 graph web and wacko. There's gold there. So there's low grade gold intersections in the historic data. So this was a good area to peg. And so we completely pegged around here. Our good friends at Fortescue dropped these leases here. So we picked it up. We believe it's a potential gold camp. This is what it looks like, having a look with the total magnetic intensity. And the takeaways here are we've got the major structure through the guts. We have got this, what we call the saltwater ring structure. And the good thing about that is it's actually bowed the stratigraphy up so that we got the stratigraphy outcropping, which is the same as Mount Olympus, the woolly or Duck Creek dolomite with the Mount McGrath shales underneath it. So very, very good. We drilled here last year. We only drill here in November, December. It's too cold up there otherwise. And being a small program, we get the rig when nobody else wants it. So this area here has got splays, it's got gold, it's got historical data. There's historical data out there. We've now discovered the new Spinifex dome, which is very similar to this. So you can see in the coming year, we'll be doing a lot of basic on-ground exploration. We've completed the close space magnetics out here. So we've got all our data assembled. We can now start cherry picking where we want to explore. This is what we've just drilled. We've just drilled these 3 lines here, and these are to investigate the splays. In the drill hole right there, we had 4 meters at 0.8. And of course, that was the last drill hole we drilled last year. So we're drilling to the north of that. So we've done 20 holes for about 1,872 meters, and they are in the laboratory. So we should be getting the news flow from them in, I'd say, February. So we've got the saltwater ring, we've got the Spinifex ring, and we're starting to understand the geology. This is a model of what we're looking at. And the takeaways here is the Duck Creek, Mount McGrath contact. And that is where you get the Mount Olympus style. If they're refractory or not refractory, we'll wait for that. So you can see we'll have targets on both sides of this dome. Happy. Now we go to Melrose. This is a beauty. The main thing I like about this is that these, there's the Paulsons, the company maker. And I believe what Bill says, he said it'd be extremely unusual for no other sizable deposit within 50 Ks. So we believe that. And where we're going to be drilling here, we're going to be drilling, following up this anomaly. Now, these holes here were drilled to the west, looking for north-south. We will be drilling to the south, looking for a Paulson's lookalike. And 27 meters at 0.3 is a great anomalous zone. So summing up, we're locked and loaded. We are drilling. We are drilling known gold and known lithium. We've got our people assembled. We've got the cash to explore, and watch this space. Thank you very much.
Swanee is locked and loaded. Matsa Resources Ltd is an ASX listed exploration and gold mining company operating south of Laverton in the northeastern goldfields of WA. The company is conducting a focused exploration drive at its flagship Lake Carey project in order to discover and develop mineable ounces, which can feed into a company owned and operated mill with the ability of transforming it into a significant gold producer. Executive Chairman Paul Poli joins us with the story of Matsa Resources. Welcome, Paul.
Good afternoon. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk and taking up 15 minutes of your time today. What you're currently seeing on the screens here is our Red October gold mine. It's an underground gold mine, and we've got some great footage there. That's during drilling. Company itself, Matsa Resources, codes MAT. Sorry about that. We've got 4 directors. I'm the chairman and managing director. We've got Pascal Blampain, who is a very experienced and seasoned geologist who we work with very well. Frank Sybil, mining engineer, and certainly been around the traps a fair bit and has been with us now for about 11 years. And Andrew Chapman, fellow accountant and also a company secretary. I guess our claim to fame is we have 882,000 ounces of gold at a very good 2.4 grams per tonne. Current top 20 shareholders have about 55%, and I'll get you to have a look at the pie chart. BNP Paribas nominee entities on behalf of our German and Singaporean shareholders have 27%. Deutsche Balaton, institution out of Hamburg in Germany, have been fantastic supporters of us for several years now. They have 7%, and I myself own 4% of the company. Interestingly, I've paid for all my shares. I've never had any for free, so I've certainly got a little bit of skin in the game. Current share price, 5.3 cents, very, very low, presents exceptional value for a company that's got 882,000 ounces of gold. I don't really understand why we're at this price, but I can suggest to you that our share price started coming off when we ceased operations at Red October, and the market, I am told, believes we are come raise. And I'll come back to that because I think it's a very important item to discuss. I think the batteries might be getting a bit soft on this. Lake Carey, 503 square kilometres. We are surrounded by world-class, high-quality gold mines. We're about 60 k's south of Laverton, as I said, 240 kilometres northeast of Kalgoorlie. We operate mainly in our Red October hub, our Linden hub, and our Fortitude hubs. We have got a very detailed exploration program planned for the next 12 to 18 months, and we believe that we'll be able to delineate 600 to 1.3 million ounces of new gold discoveries during that time, pending funding, of course. We are continuing with mining studies during the year. We completed 2 sets of studies, an upgrade at Fortitude Gold Mine, which I will touch bases on in a short time, and Devon, or the Devon pit in the Linden hub. Studies are continuing at Binder, Fortitude North, Hill East, and Gallant. Our mineral resource is here for everyone to see. Our underground resources are 6.2 grams per tonne. Our above ground resources probably average around about 2 grams. So as I said, they are very healthy grades. We've been pretty busy this year. Whilst we haven't done a lot of drilling in the last 12 months, we've certainly increased our gold resources. Some 12 months ago, in fact, September of last year, we had in the vicinity of 440,000 ounces. Today, as I've said, 882. So that is almost a doubling of our resource in that just over 12-month period. We are very confident that we'll continue on that type of growth ratio or growth trend. So I think that there's a fair bit to like about our company. We're certainly poised to exceed the 1 million ounce mark, which seems to be a magical figure where you really produce a lot of value. Very interestingly, and I want to talk about this slide, probably to me, it's more important than geology at this point in time. Mergers and acquisitions in the region. And what I'd like you to look at is the very last column, valuation. This valuation is the dollar value that the offeror company has paid for the resources that the offeree company had. As you'll see, not less than $100 per ounce. One company is up to $249 an ounce. So obviously there might be a bit of a reserve in there. Matsa's current EV sits at $22. Now, I find that fascinating, and I think you should too as an investor. That is the single key as to whether you've got a value proposition here. I did mention that I believe the market rates us as come raise, and that's why our share price is where it is. Well, there's more than one way for your company to get funded, and it doesn't necessarily need to be via share issues, and it doesn't necessarily need to be by debt. In fact, if you have a look at Matsa's history, we did very few capital raisings over the last 10 years. And we did that by project deals, by selling projects, getting projects, develop them to a certain stage and selling them off. I think Matsa is very confident that in the ensuing few months, we will be able to do the same. We will monetize our assets. We will not sell assets that are important to our strategy. And that strategy is becoming a gold producer of some note. So we'll retain the tenements that are important to us, and we will monetize the rest. In fact, we've completed one deal that should be executed and finalized tomorrow. It's only a very small deal, but that's our Red Dog, Tin Dog tenements. That should proceed hopefully by tomorrow or Monday. So our focus was, up until recently, Red October and Devon. Our focus will be our other exploration targets to exceed that 1 million ounces. And we will do that without necessarily falling back to capital raisings. Regionally, we've got 30 odd exploration targets in our 500 square kilometres. As I've already suggested to you, it's a world-class precinct. There's a lot of gold that has already been found, and there's a lot of gold to be found. I ask you to note, the white area is a lake, Lake Kerry. It's not a lake like everyone thinks where you've got water and all of that. It's a typical West Australian dry salt lake. In fact, in 4 years that we've been there, I've only ever seen it probably have 30 centimetres of water once. And that lasted a few weeks, not quite a month. So it's very easy to get rid of. It's very easy to control. Red October is entirely within the lake, and that mine's been there about 7 years. So we will go ahead and explore this. And we're going to explore areas that have been very poorly explored in the past, or in fact had no previous exploration. So I think you can see by all those dots that we've got numerous targets, and they're surrounded by mineralized zone. We all know the story. Best place to look for gold is where there is gold. So just drilling into it that little bit more. Sorry, I'm just having a few problems with this pointer. So Fortitude and Binder Trend is probably where our focus will be for the next 12 months. Fortitude Trend is the one to the east, Binder Trend, the one to the west. And if you have a look at all the deposits in that area, specifically Matsa's deposits or gold mineralized zones, they follow these trends. And it's wherever there are cross structures, 45 degrees or other degrees that Pascal sees, that's where we'll concentrate our effort and we will drill. So you'll see there Fortitude North, the Fortitude deposit, and Stealth. The Fortitude mine itself, 489,000 ounces of gold. We did 3 small trial pits some 2 years ago. You'll see those in yellow. They produced 184,000 ounces, sorry, 184,000 tons of gold ore at an average grade of about 1.8 grams per ton for about 10,000 ounces. That went to Anglo Gold under an ore purchase agreement that we had with them. We've remodeled that, and through the knowledge that we gained from the mining and the grade control drilling, we've now got a new mine design, which is outlined in blue. It encompasses the 3 trial pits and actually goes out into the dry salt lake. This is fully approved. It's a fully approved mine plan. We can start mining here tomorrow without any impediment at all. All that we need is a mill, which there are some around, but we've got another plan for that. So this particular gold mine, feasibility currently shows $95.5 million positive cash flow within a 30-month period. That's at $2,400 Australian gold price. Gold price this morning when I first looked was about 2,500. So there's a little bit of extra profit or surplus cash flow surplus there. We are looking at studies to go underground after we've actually completed the open pit. And that's what it looks like there. So the actual open pit is delineated in blue. You can note that the higher grade is signified in red. There's a lot of higher grade material there that's not included in this current pit. So gold price goes higher, pit can go deeper, up goes the profitability of the mine, up goes the amount of gold that you can actually recover in ounces. This is a 2.6 kilometre long mineralised zone. The actual pit itself, as I said, is about 1 kilometre long, 190 metres deep. So there's a lot of growth potential there. Fortitude North, to me, this is the most exciting project that the company has right now for growth potential. It's 6 kilometres north of our Fortitude gold mine. So whatever infrastructure we have at the Fortitude gold mine can certainly be shared with Fortitude North. Coincidentally, Matsa has a 72-person, very modern, worthwhile camp in close proximity that will probably shift to the Fortitude gold mine. At Fortitude North, we've got a 1.6 kilometre long anomalous zone. There is a supergene and fresh rock. We have drilled very sparsely, I think it's about 8 odd diamond holes that we've put in there. So we've drilled the first 2/3 or the northern 2/3 of this mineralised zone. And you can see some of the grades that we've got there. I won't read them all out, but 47 metres at 2.5 grams. It's pretty interesting to me. So we are fairly confident, back of the envelope calculations, that with the drilling we've currently got, while it's not yet JORC, but our exploration target there starts off at about 380,000 ounces of gold at 2.4 grams per tonne. If we drill this out to its fullest extent into the lake, 1.6 kilometres, we can actually forecast there's a potential of up to 600,000 ounces there. So this will be our focus very early in the new year. We will be drilling Fortitude North and be very, very exciting to see what the results are. Binda. Binda is another pit. It's a few kilometres to the south of Fortitude Gold Mine. Again, very close proximity. All the infrastructure can be shared. It's a small pit that was historically mined by Western Mining Corporation in the 80s, and they were producing in the vicinity of 7 grams per tonne gold. We've delineated 40,000 ounces at Binda at 2.4 grams. We can see potential, strong potential for further resources along strike and at depth. And this will be a focus of a drilling program, probably towards the end of first quarter next year, early in the second quarter of next year. There is some stockpiles around Binda that we've noted, and we've taken some samples from that, and very pleased to see that from those stockpiles, 4.7 grams per tonne. So we'll be examining how that can be taken up to Anglo Gold and processed through an ore purchase agreement that we've got that still exists for Red October. Certainly, there's a lot more drilling to be done. Once we've drilled those 2 areas out, we'll go to the Binda trend. This was the one that was to the west. BE1, BE2, BE3, and BE4. They were targets that we've previously had a look at. BE1 was probably one of the first diamond holes that we've put in the area, and this was the core, visible gold, highly exciting. So we did a series of holes in the area, and sadly, where we predicted there to be further mineralized zone, we had 10 meters or 8 meters of core loss. Typically, where you've got mineralization, it's not uncommon to have core loss because of the nature of that zone. So we're certainly very keen to return back to BE1, drill it out properly and see what's actually there. You just never know. It's never been drilled previously by other explorers. Matsa is the first group there. Red October, it's my favourite. Red October, we've delineated certain areas that are of high interest to us. What we've recently been looking at is at lionfish. We've identified 228,000 tonnes of gold ore at 7 grams per tonne for about 54,000 ounces. The good thing about this area, it's in very close proximity to existing infrastructure. Upcoming exploration, I've kind of summed it all, but there's a chart here that you can have a look at. Our strategy is based on developing the funds and developing the resource to be a producer through our own mill. Sadly, I'm running out of time, so I can't really expand on that, but I invite you to have a look at our schedules. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Paul. Miramar Resources is exploring for gold near Kalgoorlie at its Gidgee and Glandore projects and has other projects in the Murchison and Gascoyne regions. To tell the Miramar story in detail, we welcome Executive Chairman Allan Kelly. Take it away, Allan.
Thanks, Jerry, and thanks to RIU for putting on this conference again this year. We're a new company. We listed just on 12 months ago, back in October last year. I think we're one of the first companies to sort of get up and running after the big lockdown. So we've been very busy over the last 12 months, and I look forward to running through what we've been up to and our future plans with you. So as Jerry said, we've been really busy in the Eastern Goldfields. We've got 2 main flagship projects, our Gidgee joint venture just north of Kalgoorlie, where we think we've made a potential new discovery at Marylebone. I've got a number of drill targets there that we're going to look forward to systematically testing over the next 12 months or so. And we just put out some results from our first major project program at our second project at Glandore. And there's a very large gold footprint developing there. Some nice historic high-grade diamond results, and we think we could be onto a potential discovery there as well. Apart from those 2 projects, we've got a lot of other land positions around the place. We've got some ground in the Eastern Goldfields and some more early stage projects up in the Murchison and Gascoyne regions. And we've also got a nice strategic land position not far from Dean up at Dreadnought in the Gascoyne as well, where we think there's potential for nickel copper PGEs. So a quick corporate snapshot, very, very cheap company at the moment, tight structure because we've only been listed for 12 months. Market cap today of about $12 million with about 3.7 in the bank. So pretty low EV for the projects that we've got. I'm largest shareholder. I put a number of the projects into the IPO, and we've had some new investors come onto the register since the IPO. So we're starting to sort of build up a nice little tight shareholder register. We've got a board that have found and built things, and that's very important to be able to recognise opportunities and also to recognise when things are not going to make the milestones that you want, so you can move them on and keep focused on the good stuff. So this is Gidgee. This is where we've spent most of the time over the last 12 months. You can see fantastic location, only 15 k's north of Kalgoorlie. We're right on the highway. The highway from Kalgoorlie to Menzies runs right through the middle of our project. And we're surrounded by major deposits there. Obviously the Super Pit, Mount Charlotte to the south of us, Kanowna Belle off to the east, and then the Paddington deposit just to the north of us. And what we really liked about this project was you've got this major structure called the Barara Shear Zone, which comes up from the Barara and Golden Ridge deposits down to the southeast and swings around into the Tennant position where we are, and then keeps going up to Paddington. And we thought the project was, obviously in a great location, but pretty much underexplored. So, if you use a real estate analogy, it's the cheapest house in the best street. So when we went out there, we started looking at the historical data, and at first glance, it looked like it had been pretty well drilled. You would think, 15 k's from Kalgoorlie, it would have had a lot of drilling and a lot of effective drilling there. But one of the things that characterises this area is there's a fair bit of transported material. There's a paleo channel system that runs over the top of the prospective geology. So you get sort of 30 to 40 metres of paleo channels, sands and gravels and things. So when you strip out the drilling that didn't get through that paleo channel system, you start to really think this is almost a greenfields opportunity, 15 k's from Kalgoorlie. So we've got a 15-kilometre long segment of the Brara Shear underneath predominantly transported material. So there's not much to see on the surface. We're a long strike from major deposits. So we started out pretty systematically just doing some air core drilling in that sort of central part of the project, which was the granted tenements that we could work on after listing. And pretty much straight away, we started to get onto this target that we call Marlebone, where we've got a nice, 2 metres at 7 grams from our first air core program. We've got a number of other targets. And now, 12 months on from listing, we've basically got all the tenements granted. So we'll start to look at things to the southeast and also to the northwest of Marlebone, especially that sort of 2 to 3 kilometre long segment of the Brara Shear Zone, which sits right up to the northwest there, sort of closer to Paddington. So Marlebone, this is really the sort of flagship at the moment. We think there's potential for a new discovery here, close to existing infrastructure. The geology, the structure and the scale are very similar to Paddington. Paddington's a 4 million ounce deposit, that was discovered back in the 80s and, we did very well for people like Pancon and that. And we think we've got the opportunity to find something similar here. So you can see that Brara Shear Zone running up to the northwest. There's a number of north-south and sort of northeast structures which truncate that shear zone. And all those reds and pinks are plus 1 gram air core hits. We've got multiple sort of 2 and 3 gram and 6 gram hits across multiple sections. And to date, we've really just done air core and we haven't really tested this thing below about 60 metres. We're currently out there doing one more air core program before the end of the year. And they're all those yellow dots and they go right up to our tenement boundary and some infill drilling on some of the earlier hits that we've got as well. The other thing from our last program that we did, I think we announced those results back in September. There's another target developing what we now call Blackfriars, which sits in the Black Flag beds just to the west of the main Marlebone structure. To give you an idea of what we've done over the last 12 months, this is what Marlebone looked like 12 months ago for the IPO. There was one RC hole that hit 4 metres at 0.8. That was it. That's what it looks like now. Multiple 1, 2 gram and up to 6 gram hits and open to the northwest still. To give you an idea of scale, this is Marlebone at the same scale as the Hemi deposit back in April last year. So obviously that was a snapshot in the exploration discovery up at Hemi, but you can see that the scale and the same, and the numbers that we're seeing are very similar to what they were seeing at that point in time back in April 2020. So that's why we're confident that we could be onto something pretty large here. And obviously we're in a great position if we do end up finding a deposit, having those existing operations around us. So the next steps at Marlebone, as I said, we're out there at the moment drilling another air core program, about 10,000 metres before the end of the year. We've just done an extension to a ground mag survey over those newly granted tenements around Marlebone to help us work out the geology and the structure. And then next year, all going well, we'll do the first sort of real RC and diamond bedrock testing of this target. And that'll be really the game changer to see if we can turn those air core hits into bedrock hits. We're going to do some work on some of the newly granted southern area, including a really nice conceptual target called the Jog. And we also want to get up onto those northern tenements along strike, where we've got that Brara Shear Zone as well. Our second project, Glandor, sits a little bit further out of Kalgoorlie. It's about 40 kilometres east of Kalgoorlie, but still in a great location. You can see the regional geology there, about 6 kilometres to the south of us. Black Cat are planning to build a mill at Majestic. And just take note of those 2 little red blobs there. They're lake granites. Both of them host nice little deposits. Majestic is about 500,000 ounces and Trojan is about, I think, about 150,000 ounces or so. Our land position at Glandor there sits mostly under a lake, a salt lake. And we've got one of those little granites that sits sort of smack bang in the middle of a mafic sequence there. And the photo there shows the lake drilling rig out on the lake there for the recent program we've just done. So we announced some results yesterday from this first late drilling program that we did. And we've come up with gold anomalism in air core over about 5 kilometres of strike. And the key area is that sort of southern area around that granite, which is the red blob. And previous explorers had, I guess, been put off by the granite and had drilled around the edges of it. And all those yellow dots, they're historic diamond holes. There's one up here and one here, but there's a little cluster down here. And there's some really nice hits there, including 6 metres at 30 grams in a structure here, but then it wasn't really followed up. And no one did any work in the granite. When we went out there first, there were a couple of old Western mining era air core holes down here on the land. So we followed those up and got 1 metre at 9 and 4 metres at 1 down here, but recognised there was potentially northeast structures running through to where these diamond hits were. And when you look at something like Majestic down to the south of us, that's exactly what you see at Majestic, northeast structures hosted in granite. So we decided we'd extend the air core lines across the lake, and we've got a number of strongly anomalous gold results sitting in those northeast structures. And a lot of this area hasn't been drilled in here because it's like sand dunes and islands that you can't access with a lake rig. So we think there's potential for something pretty significant there. We'll do some more infill air core drilling, but we're pretty keen to follow up those diamond holes as quick as we can as well. The Randalls, this is their third Eastern Goldfields project, and we've literally done nothing here so far. We waited to get that granted. I think it got granted in about September, but obviously in a fantastic location. You've got the folded banded iron formations where Silver Lake are mining high-grade gold deposits in these fold hinges. We've got the same banded iron formation on our ground, and there's no testing of the fold hinges in that banded iron formation. So we're pretty keen to get out there and see whether we can sort of replicate what we see at Santa and Maxwell's and Cockeyed Bob. Other opportunities we've got a couple of projects in the Murchison. They're sort of a bit more early stage and on the back burner at the moment. But in the Gascoyne, we've got a pretty nice land position there. As I said, not too far away from where Dean was talking about his ground at Mangaroon. So our Bangamore projects, we've got potential for nickel copper PGEs on the margin between the Pilbara and the Yilgarn. Dean's projects here. These are all our applications, and then a couple of granted projects. We're going to do an EM survey out here. We really like these Proterozoic dolerite sills because they're the same age as the West Musgraves. And this is one of the areas that was shown up by Geoscience Australia in their 2016 nickel copper PGE atlas that led to the discovery of the Chalice deposit down at Julimar. One of the other projects is an old Western mining project I worked on called Whale Shark. It basically sits where these Capricorn origin rocks go under the cover of the basin. So you've got a folded banded iron formation with a granite in the middle of it. It looks very similar to ISCGs in sort of the eastern states. There was also some similarities to the Javieron discovery. So we went out and did some MMI soil sampling and came up with some really nice copper and rare earth anomalies sitting on the edges of the granite. Unlike Javieron, we've only got about 100 metres of cover, so pretty easy to test this once we come up with drill targets. But I'll point out the peak copper number here of 4,500 ppb compared to 700 at Javieron and 350 at Calibre from the same sort of surveys. Now we've got less cover than they have, but our sampling was much broader. So we've just done 250 metre space sampling here, and we're hoping to get those results in the next week or so. As I said, we've got a nice land position in the Bangamore. This nickel copper PGE model is pretty interesting, and it's sort of taken off really over the last few years on the back of the Nova and Chalice discoveries. So we're well positioned there. And just in summary, this is our project pipeline portfolio, and I think there's a lot of upside there. Obviously, the focus is on these Eastern Goldfields projects, and our aim over the next sort of 12 months is to take hopefully one or both of these things to the point where we're now starting to drill out a deposit, a bedrock deposit. But we've got plenty of other fantastic looking targets at Gidgee and also at Glandor to move forward as well. And that's our focus over the next 12 months. So just in summary, I think, you know, we've got all the ingredients to create value through discovery. We've heard many people talk about how much discovery is created, how much value is created by making discoveries. We've got people on the board that have done it before. We think we've got potential for, you know, discoveries at Gidgee and Glandor in fantastic location. We've got all these other opportunities. We're out there on the ground. You know, we're spending money. We've spent over the last 12 months, 75% of our cash flow has gone into the ground onto projects. And I think there's substantial value upside with ongoing discovery success at our projects. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Allan. Magnetic Resources is a dynamic and unique gold company with a primary focus on the advanced Hawk's Nest 9 and adjacent Lady Julia gold assets in the Laverton region of WA. These assets are large scale and at surface. The shallow gold and its proximity to existing mining operations and infrastructure in the region represent the unique point of difference for investing in magnetic resources. Managing Director George Sakalidis takes up the story. George.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be presenting here in the Western. I think it's for the first time, so great to be here. Yeah, so this is a bit of a snapshot on the talk itself. The company has a very tight capital structure. We listed in 2007, yet we've only got 219 million shares. We have had a strong share performance and we expect that to continue. We're a bit different from most companies in that we have mainly high net worth investors as shareholders rather than many of the bigger institutions. There's two deposits that we're talking about, Hawk's Nest 9, which is 3 kilometres long. It's about 400 metres wide, quite a significant deposit. And the second one is Lady Julie, which we've basically been drilling over the last 6 months. We've had some amazing intersections, and there's a couple here, 25 metres at 4.4 grams per tonne from 0 metres or from surface. And underneath that, we've hit 36 metres at 4 grams. So it looks a very robust deposit, and we'll be talking about that. We are in elephant country. We're next door to some of the bigger mines in WA. And we're obviously hoping that there's another elephant on our ground, but the signatures for that are already happening, and there is strong M&A potential, not just as a general comment, but with us, with our neighbours who are the producers. In terms of the shares, there's 218 million shares. Current share price $1.55, $1.60. We have around 4 million in cash. You can see in terms of the big holders, the top 4 own 45%, the top 20 holders have 78%, so very tightly held. You can see the share performance. We've been above $1 for over a year, and about 3 years ago, we were around 12 cents. Okay, so where are we? We're about 3 hours drive north of Kalgoorlie at Laverton. To the west, 100 kilometres away is Leonora, which you've probably heard of. In that region, there's about 30 million ounces of resources and old historical areas that have been mined. So it's a big area. It's probably second in size of gold deposits and quantity as to Kalgoorlie. We've been extremely busy, and we'll talk about that. So our land holding, there we are in that grey colour or blue on this map. Hawk's Nest 9 and Lady Julia, the main deposits. And you can see how close we are to the Wallaby 7 million ounce deposit, and the Granite Smith processing plant's 15 k's away, and the Jupiter plant mine and processing plant are only 10 k's away, and a little bit further away, 35 k's is the Sunrise Dam. So all these companies have been operating for a long time, and clearly are looking for more opportunities to add to their own inventories. Okay, so this is gives you an idea on the infrastructure. Because of the existing mines, there is quite a bit, and you can see we're only 20 k's southwest of Laverton, so we stay there and drive to site every day. There's a sealed road from Kalgoorlie through to Laverton. The old Laverton road is also well used by the miners, and there's a gas pipeline. There's air services roughly 3 to 4 times a week, so it's well serviced. Okay, so all the ore bodies in the district have strong similarities to each other, and they have intrusions. Both Jupiter and Wallaby have cyanide intrusions. But the other similarity are these load systems, and they're stacked loads, and these stacked load systems go to great depth. So if you can find one of those, that certainly is a fantastic thing to find on your ground. But they all have that similar load systems, and some of them are quite high grade, and they actually carry the actual deposit. So they carry most of the grade. Both Sunrise Dam and Wallaby are mining down at a kilometre depth. So they've mined through a number of those stacked load systems. Okay, so we're jumping onto Hawk's Nest 9. This is the main area that we've drilled. In terms of drilling, in actual fact, we've done 103,000 metres, about 1,500 RC holes. So it's a serious amount of drilling, and the average depth is still only around 68 metres. So we're basically drilled out 2 surface deposits, and that's what we'll be talking about today. Every one of those dots on that map is a drill hole, and the purple drill hole is an intersection greater than 2 grams a tonne. So this whole HN9 deposit is wireframeable, and you can join it all together. It's very surprising that we were able to find this, given that you would have thought someone would have found it before us. This is 3 kilometres long. It outcrops on the western side. So basically, it dips 20 degrees to the east. So it's one continuous, I guess, gold zone. And because it dips 20 degrees to the east, it's quite shallow. And you can see we've explored it at least 400 metres to the east of the outcrop. This is definitely a potential area that can be a big open cut, and we'll talk a bit more about that. So in that central area, just in there, is where we get our thickened load systems, which are similar to what we see next door. You can see there's some stacked loads, and there's some decent intersections, 100-metre intersections in that area. We've been following that system to the northeast, the stack system, and we haven't actually closed it off. So it's quite a large gold system at HN9, and that's why we've done so much drilling here. And as you go north of that thickened zone, you can see how the gold outcrops on the western side and dips gently to the east. And further north, it actually sits on the surface. So that's why I talk about a potential for open cut. Okay, so let's talk about Lady Julie, and let's come back to the detail. In terms of where Hawk's Nest 9, it sits in here. We just talked about it. It's quite a big deposit. The second area is Lady Julie. So we've been investigating Lady Julie to start with on the southernmost point, and then recent times up here. We were surprised by what we found, and you can see some of the extremely robust intersection, 41 metres at 2.6 from 32, 28 at 4.5 from 0, 36 at 4 from 116. So there's 3 of many. There's at least 20 thick intersections in that area in here. And that area is emerging as a potential very large resource, ounces, whatever you want to call it. So we go back to the actual, you can see this table, and you can see the intersections in more detail. And the rest, I mean, it doesn't take much of this sort of thick material with good grade to add up to a large inventory. So we are drilling this out, and you can see on the eastern side, there's half a dozen holes that were just finished, and they're going underneath these intersections that we've hit. So the 36 metres at 4 grams from 116 metres, we're actually drilling underneath that to see whether it continues down. And as you saw in the previous slides, if you're into one of these systems, they can go to a kilometre and 2 kilometre depth. And if that's the case, then this will be a fantastic resource. So you can see I'm pretty excited, and that's the sort of thing that doesn't happen very often. So if we go back one more slide. Yeah, that's just same sort of thing, but expressed in words. There is a large drilling program that's just finished, and we expect to be putting more holes down in the near future. I don't know the exact amount because we're waiting on the next round of results. The second thing that we found, and we have announced recently, probably about a week ago, is that north of this Lady Julie 1 area, up here we're calling this Lady Julie 4, and we've got some pretty thick intersections here as well. And that was the first time we'd ever drilled there. I think 37 metres at 1.8 grams and things like that. So that area is being followed up with holes as well. Obviously, if we can get these thick intersections and with good grade, it'll make a huge difference. It'll make this pretty interesting. So why have we been focused on the Lady Julie? Obviously because of the thickness, but we're also in this, what we call a seismic thrust positions that have been revealed after we did the seismic survey. And these are the projections onto the surface. So it's quite intriguing that we're getting the depth of continuity exactly the same as what we see from the seismic. And we also note this structural corridor is where we're getting a lot of gold. So the distance from there to there is about 5 k's. So it's a significant size. So that is a seismic, and that tells you quite a bit. On the western end, all the reflectors are near horizontal, but as you come into this 2 kilometre zone, there are these thrust zones, and you can see the individual thrusts in blue, and that thrust is where Hawksnest 9 sits, and Lady Julie sits over in this area where the thrusts are quite a bit steeper. You can see the interpretation, steeper thrusts at Lady Julie and the flatter thrust at Hawksnest 9. So what that tells us is that what we're dealing with has great depth continuity. The seismic tells us that. Obviously, we have to drill deeper holes to verify that, but it allows people like me to be confident that we'll be able to find more. And we see it in our work at Hawksnest 9, in that none of these things have been closed off in the eastern direction. So they're parts of some very large gold systems. Okay, so in terms of directors, I'm the MD operating out of Perth. Most of our operations are in Laverton. Eric is actually a managing director of part of a bank in Singapore, and Mr. Chan lives in Singapore. He's been out on site several times, and he's been to diggers. So he's one of the main shareholders, and Julian actually resides in Margaret River, but he's got a lot of experience in mining companies. Okay, so in summary, in terms of Hawksnest and Lady Julie, we have found obviously a number of stacked lodes, and there's potential for similarity to what we have next door with some of the bigger deposits. The Lady Julie 1 area, which we talked about, and Lady Julie 4 we've talked about, have tremendous scope for upside. We are testing some of those other thrust positions currently with the RAB drilling, and the RAB drilling itself will show whether or not the other thrusts that have been revealed by the seismic actually carry gold. So that's another thing that we're doing. And there's obvious M&A potential. And the reason why I say that is these mines next door have been operating for a long time, and they're not operating at full capacity. And in some cases, mine life is limited. So there's obvious synergy with the companies next door. There's 3 big plants that are sitting there available. Okay, so this is I won't spend much time on this, but we do have a project called Homeward Bound, probably closer to Leonora than Laverton. Yet we have had some significant results from our last drilling program, 20 metres at 3 grams from 64 metres. So the Federation shear controls the mineralisation. There's a kilometre length, and we're going back to put some extra holes in the middle here. We know there's interest in this project because again, there's quite a bit of M&A in this area, and this looks quite robust. So some thicker intersections here as well. And last but not least, we do have a Julimar lookalike. I don't know how many companies do have that, but we are another one of those. We are east of Julimar, and these have been, Julimar sits here, and we've got 4 projects to the east. We picked them up based on geophysical interpretation, which I did. And there's 2 intrusions, about 2 kilometres in length, which have never been drilled. The Benja-bearing tenement has strong structural similarities to Julimar. You can see the way Julimar, the intrusion itself, bends and ends up going from north-south like that. And this one here does exactly the same. And it even has that notch, which is similar to that notch there. So in terms of access is an area that we have to explore a bit more. We have access to the training project, and we're ready to do a bit of drilling there. But we're working on access to these other nickel potential projects as well. Anyway, that's the talk, and thank you very much.
Next up, we welcome to the stage Peter Bewick. He's the Managing Director of the recently minted Hamelin Gold. Hamelin is exploring for gold in the Tanami province in Western Australia. Welcome to the conference, Peter.
Thanks very much, Jerry. Welcome today to listen to the Hamelin Gold story. Today, I'm going to tell you a bit about who we are, why we think we might be sitting on the next great thing up in the Tanami, and how we're going about our exploration in this underexplored and very prospective part of the world. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity to drive down the Tanami Highway, or you don't watch Outback Truckers, this is the Tanami. It's basically a pretty flat, featureless part of the planet. A lot of sand cover. It sort of masks what is a very, very exciting geology under this thin sand cover. And our job is to find out what's under that. So today, talking about Hamelin, we listed less than a month ago following a $10 million IPO, very successfully run through Euros and Chieftain Securities. We have raised that money to fund the 100% owned West Tanami project. It's a belt scale opportunity, over 2,200 square kilometres of contiguous tenements. We have numerous untested drill targets and open areas undercover. And what we've done is we've pulled apart and learnt a lot from what's going on with our neighbour. A lot of what juniors do is they look at the projects and the deposits around their prospects and try and learn, so we don't learn the same mistakes or don't do the same mistakes, but also learn the key understandings of what it takes to make a deposit in your area. And we've done a lot of that work looking at Newmont's true tier 1 globally significant discovery in the Northern Territory side of the Tanami. We've assembled a great team, real clear strategy and focus, and I'll tell you a bit about what we're up to. So the company joining me on the board is Justin Osborne. We're both geologists, both started our careers in Western mining. Justin went on to work for Goldfields for a number of years, and more recently worked as executive director for Gold Road. So he took Gold Road from a discovery hole, a $6 million company, through to what it is today, a $1.2 billion producer. And he's pretty keen to do that again with Hamelin. Will Robinson joins us as chairman, 15-year experience as managing director of Encounter Resources, also past president of AMIC for a number of years, 10 years. And lawyer Philip Crutchfield, Melbourne-based barrister, ex-chairman of Zipco. So we've got a lot of corporate experience on our board, and for a junior, a well-balanced commercial and technical team. We, as we said, listed last month, $18 million company today, around about 9 million in the bank. So a good war chest to get stuck into the Tanami. And what we managed to do, which was really pleasing for me, well, I welcomed every single shareholder into the company. It was extremely pleasing to welcome both Goldfields and Silver Lake, 2 very respected gold producers who now hold 10% stakes inside Hamelin. So this is, scale up here is a bit of an issue. So you got to sort of think about the sort of area we're working in. This is a map that covers 350 kilometres of strike. So that's Perth to Albany. And it's dominated by a handful of mining companies. From us here on the West Australian side of the border, the Newmont operations here, where they're collecting more ground, as you may have seen from the Prodigy announcement earlier this week. They dominate this eastern side of the Tanami. Prodigy hold the middle ground in between, with Northern Star exploring up in the north and also holding the Coyote gold mine, which is under care and maintenance on the West Australian side. That Tanami Highway, just for interest's sake, running straight through the guts of the project. So just as a very quick snapshot, looking at the geology on the left and the gravity on the right, what you see is basically, whilst you can't cross that border at the moment, certainly the geology and the structures do. This is one major goldfield from west to east. The geology on the West Australian side is exactly the same as the geology on the Northern Territory side. And as we can see from the looking at the gravity, there is the major trans-Tanami origin dominates and controls the majority of gold mineralisation in the belt. So that trans-Tanami origin clearly rips through the border, and we control a good 100 strike kilometres of that corridor. One of the key stats which I find fascinating is that the Northern Territory has never beaten WA in anything. What they have beaten is in this Tanami, they hold 25 million ounces of gold on the Northern Territory side. On the West Australian side, we have less than 1 million. That's not a balance that makes sense in most orogenic gold systems. What we've got is a problem here, not because of the geology, not because of the structures, but it's basically the West Australian side of the Tanami is vastly underexplored. And that's where we see the great opportunity for new discoveries. So as I said before, you need to learn the lessons of the previous explorers around you, and no one's done a better job than Newmont up at Cali. The Dead Bullock Soak complex is an absolute giant. It's a tier 1 gold system in anyone's books. But the key things that we see there in the geology up to the top of the image is that the geology or the deposits are circulated and focused around a key geological antiform, where that antiform intersects a series or a swarm of structures. As we can see from the plan view below, it generates a series of flatly plunging chutes. And these chutes are made up of basically a series of high-grade, super high-grade, narrow veins that produce a broad mineable chute. The actual deposit itself, whilst a lot of gold is visible there, generally produces around about a 5 gram product. When you look at this deposit over time, you see it started as a very, very small occurrence surface. As exploration has gone on and as they've really understood what's going on there, they've added millions of ounces per annum. This would be, in my opinion, one of Australia's greatest brownfields gold exploration stories there is. You hear a lot about Fosterville. Newmont don't do so many presentations and don't talk so much about it. But this operation, through its exploration success, has seen their all-in sustaining cost drop by 45% over the last 8 years. They've almost doubled production, up to 500,000 ounces per annum. It's now Newmont's lowest cost gold producer on the planet. This is a fantastic operation. If we can find half one of these, I'd go home pretty happy. They're currently looking at major expansion, putting down a major shaft, looking at 2040 production through to 2040. And if that does occur, this deposit is going to grow well above the 14 million ounces now. And it may quite easily get through 20 in a short period of time. So what lessons can we learn from this great deposit? Well, you look at the near surface drilling in the early days. Like, what does the footprint look like when you drill 5 meter holes over this deposit? And what you see is this is about a 3 kilometre long 0.1 gram per tonne gold plume over this deposit. But what's fascinating is that deposit or the anomaly that extends over the 3 kilometres, as you go further west and go undercover, that shallow drilling becomes basically ineffective. Now, most of the gold in the whole Cali system sits right underneath here. But if your cover gets too deep, that shallow drilling becomes ineffective. Remember that story when we start talking about what we're doing on the West Australian side of the border. And if we start seeing this sort of stuff in the drill core, I think things will be pretty happy. But that's what the deposit looks like. It's a swarm of these narrow veins of high-grade gold. As you bulk it out, it produces the ore shoots. So one of the key lessons here, you need to know your regolith, and you need to know how to assess previous exploration to see if it's been effective. The other key thing, looking at that early geology map, is you need to understand the geological architecture and the structural architecture, like the orientation of the structures that are hosting the gold and how they interplay with your geology to produce the high-grade shoots. So if you don't know which way your geology is dipping, which way your structures are going, you're going to be shooting in the dark when you do deeper drilling. That's also another key thing to remember as we go forward. So from those lessons learnt, you then look at, well, I didn't draw this section. I just traced it over a Newmont cross section. So that's what Cali actually looks like. Those blue lines are the mineralized structures. The black lines show the strong antiformal nature of the folding there. Where they intersect, those high-grade red shoots are developed. And they're generally fairly flat plunging shoots. If they come to surface, they're quite narrow, 10, 15 meters wide. This area is stripped. If you just do shallow drilling, you might be lucky and get the odd high-grade hit. But what you see is that broad plume that we showed in the geochemistry. If you bury that same system by 20 meters or 30 meters, all you're going to see is the smoke. You're going to see the arsenic, you're going to see the gold. You might see a bit of bismuth in the system, but may not see that high-grade gold if you just drill shallow. Let's have now a look at what's going on the WA side. So our tenements, as I mentioned, cover over 100 strike kilometres of ground. That's a big project. We see it as the Tanami Highway there cutting through the guts of the project, the Coyote Gold Mine just to the north of us. These are 8 contiguous tenements that are all granted. This one granted about 48 hours before we lodged a prospectus, which was a real pain in the neck when you have to rewrite the solicitor's report. But fantastic to get that area granted, and which hosts one of the main key projects on the project. So let's have a look at what's been done in the past. So what sort of level of maturity is this exploration opportunity? You dump all the drill holes ever drilled on this project and you can see there's certainly large areas that haven't seen any exploration, but you look at that map and say it's been drilled to buggery. Well, take away every hole drilled deeper than 100 meters, which is sort of an indication of how sort of mature the exploration is. And we generally focus onto very small areas that have been drilled to any depth at all. In fact, when you look back at the exploration history, the exploration work here has been dominated by shallow drilling. So we've inherited a 2-dimensional geochemical database that's been quite successful at identifying some pretty key anomalies, but in a lot of areas it's been ineffective. We picked up this project as part of a project generation exercise with Newcrest inside Encounter. Newcrest then took it through to joint venture, had it under their management for 3 years and spent near on $5 million on the project, doing the land access, getting the heritage agreements and surveys completed, doing a major airborne magnetic survey, and did basically one short campaign of broad-spaced RC drilling. Their focus then went into the Havieron and Canadian projects of theirs, which they've been very successful on, but they handed the project back to us 100% and we own it without any, unencumbered with no royalties or anything. So 100% owned by Hamelin. So all they've done is put everything together, ready for us to get stuck into a major drill program. So when you look at the shallow drilling, what has it done for us? What has it shown us? Where it's been effective, it's very effective. So this is, again, a scale issue, but this is gold coloured, any hole drilled with greater than 0.1 gold, the same halo we looked at Cali. And you see there are major gold systems already outlined. That was, before I moved it, that is a 7-kilometre long gold anomaly there, which has never seen an orientated diamond drill hole, never seen any deep drilling deeper than a couple of 100 metres. What we also see here at Fremlins, that's a 6-kilometre long, where magenta here is again above a gram per tonne gold inside the hole. So these are serious gold systems already identified. The one that I'm most fascinated by is this Hutch's Find anomaly. And when you remember back to Cali, as that anomaly ran into deeper cover, exactly the same thing has happened here at Hutch's Find, where the drilling basically the 5-metre deep drilling went into a 20-metre deep channel and basically stopped, and all the exploration went underneath the existing anomaly. Interestingly, one of the last lines of drilling where they did do some diamond drilling here, they've intersected 10 metres at 5 grams gold. Shows that the system can produce ore grade. Equally nice intersection at Camel was the very last drill hole drilled on the project by the previous explorers. 7 metres at 3, showing again that completely open, nothing along strike or down dip. So we know that the big systems have been outlined by the shallow drilling, and we also know that there's high-grade gold under some of these anomalies. So one of the things we're very, very keen to do is finish the basic data set collection. So last week we flew an airborne magnetic survey, which was for the first time, we've now got detailed magnetics across an orogenic gold belt that's got a near on 20 million ounce gold system in it, and there's never been detailed mags put together for this whole area. So this is a base data set. You can see a lot of detail, a lot of structure and sort of fold patterns you want to be looking at for these gold systems. and again, given you can see them on a 100 strike kilometre MAT, when you zoom in, you can see them even better. So we've just finished that work and we're very, very keen to start interpreting that when it finally gets delivered, and we'll be building up our project portfolio from there. So we've got a series of serious geochemical anomalies, some untested geophysical targets to test, as well as open high-grade gold, which we need to get stuck into. So basically, that's our work program. Our exploration strategy is to get that structural architecture sorted out, completely interpret the area. One of the things we're doing really early next year is diamond drilling to see if our actual structural interp and what we're thinking is actually real. Only 7 diamond drill holes extend over that entire area so far. This is an area that's more geological questions than we can do in a very short period of time, but we're certainly going to start with early diamond drilling to tick off some of those key questions. We're also trying to work out the regolith. Where has it been effective, the shallow drilling, and where it hasn't been? That's remote sensing and trying to apply some of these deeper seeking geochemical systems like the fine fraction soil geochemistry. So a busy summer period for us to pull apart all that data, complete the targeting and work together and build up our work program for the next 18 months. And then come the break of the season, we'll be doing an EIS co-funded diamond drill program, as I mentioned. And then we're into basically continuous drilling through autumn and winter, testing a series of these existing major targets, but also going to some of the areas that have never seen a drill hole. So a busy 2022 ahead of us. We think we've got the right people, great project, the real focus and the funding now in place to get stuck into this underexplored major gold province. So if you want to have a bit of Greenfields gold into your portfolio, have a look at Hamelin Gold, and I look forward to bringing you along on the journey. Thanks very much.
Now, just a reminder before I introduce our next speaker that at 3 p.m. today, the prize for the Yeti Esky, 35-litre Yeti Esky will be drawn. So make sure that you scan the balls in the glass bowl long before then. Blackstone is a West Australian-based mining company exploring Southeast Asia's premier nickel sulfide district. We welcome Blackstone Minerals Manager Corporate Development, Dhanu Anandarasa. Welcome to our conference, Dhanu. Oh.
Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Our managing director is actually in Korea at the moment, so I have the privilege of presenting the Blackstone story. These are our disclaimers, which can be read in more detail online. So Blackstone offers investors excellent exposure to the electric vehicle and lithium-ion battery thematic, and in particular, the movement to high nickel content in the cathodes of a battery. We offer this exposure through 2 main ways. The first way is through our ownership of the nickel sulfide district in Ta Qua in northern Vietnam. The second way is through our plans to develop a downstream refinery in Vietnam. So this downstream refinery is going to purchase concentrate from the Ta Qua nickel mine and from other mines around the world, upgrade that concentrate into a specialty premium chemical product that goes into the lithium-ion battery. I'll start off a little bit with the macro. So at the moment, there is significant structural change undergoing in the nickel market. Nickel demand is primarily driven by the stainless steel industry. However, the growth in demand from nickel that is expected to be driven from lithium-ion batteries is set to grow exponentially. The Class 1 production in the world today is simply not enough to meet this projected demand. And because of that, we expect that there will be a supply shortage or nickel deficit or supply deficit in the nickel market in the short to medium term. Because of this deficit, nickel prices will need to stay higher for longer to incentivize new supply to come online and bridge that gap. So there are a number of different battery chemistries, and this space in terms of the technology continues to evolve. Blackstone is very much focused on the NCM chemistry, and within that, the NCM 811 brand. That is nickel, cobalt, and manganese in the ratio of 8 to 1:1. The market intelligence that we've gathered suggests that NCM and NCM 811 in particular will be the dominant chemistry by the end of the decade. Blackstone's operations are ideally located in Vietnam, in Southeast Asia, in and amongst the largest cathode and battery manufacturers in the world. Blackstone's focused on a partnership model, and we believe that through these partnerships, we will be able to attract significant capital to help develop our project. The capital is coming further upstream as the race intensifies to secure raw materials to fill production supply chains. At the heart of our development strategy is sustainability. And we believe that our project has inherent qualities that lends itself to the highest ESG credentials. And we are partnering with leading innovators in the industry, including companies like Circular, to track and prove that we will have the highest ESG credentials and therefore become a preferred supplier of choice to the lithium-ion battery industry. So we've recently announced the completion of a $60 million capital raising. We are very well funded. As part of that raising, we brought on some of the world's leading fund managers, including Fidelity, who increased their position. And so we have a first-class board and management team that is well funded to continue and accelerate the development of our project. So this slide just gives you a very brief overview of the two business streams that we are progressing in parallel at Blackstone. The upstream business unit takes the rocks all the way through to a nickel concentrate. The downstream business unit is focused on partnerships and then production of the MCM precursor, which is the chemical product for the lithium-ion battery. So Blackstone's business model or development strategy is only constrained or is scalable to the extent that we are able to secure nickel feedstock. And so we have three main avenues that we've identified in order to fill and expand our strategy in terms of feedstock for the refinery. So the first one I've touched on a little bit is our own nickel sulfide district in northern Vietnam. The second is our strategy or partnership model with offtake providers such as Traffic Europe. We've been developing that relationship significantly over the last year. The third way is through our own M&A activity, and we recently made an equity investment into the Monago asset in Canada, and that shows our intention to continue to find sources of feed for our refinery. So in terms of the upstream business, there are some critical events or milestones that we're achieving or planning to achieve in the short term. The first one is an updated resource statement, which will be coming out this month, and that will be followed by a pre-feasibility study. The ultimate aim is to achieve commercial production from the mine from around 2024, and that'll be aligned with the commissioning of the downstream refinery as well. So since we've gained access to the project, we have aggressively drilled. However, we think that we've only just scratched the surface. We've hit the first 5 out of 25 known targets, and each of those have had reasonable success. We've got 2 styles of mineralization, being your disseminated sulfide ore bodies, which are larger bulk tonnage opportunities. And then we've got your higher grade massive sulfide, which are smaller, higher grade, narrow vein underground mining opportunities. So the Ban Phuc deposit is the flagship deposit. At the moment, the resource has a circa 280,000 tons of nickel. This is going to provide the base load feed to a large concentrator, and that's what we're studying at the moment and will be incorporated into the upcoming upstream PFS. Ban Chang is our most advanced high-grade massive sulfide opportunity. It's very high grade, but also associated with significant byproduct credits. So we've got copper, cobalt, and PGEs as well in that mineralization. We're very excited to be working with the government on a regional opportunity called Chim Van. This has a magnetic signature circa 15 times the size of our flagship deposit. We'll continue to develop that target in the coming months. So we released a downstream pre-feasibility study in July this year. It showed very compelling economics for the refinery. So the reason we are able to demonstrate such strong cash flows is linked to the fact that there's such a low capital intensity on this project. So $491 million might look like a big number, but for the nickel output that you are getting for that capital investment, it is very low relative to other projects around the world. So the $2 billion NPV and the strong internal rate of return of 67% of this project is driven by a very low capital intensity. So we're finalizing the location for the refinery at the moment. Both will be well situated or adjacent to the existing nickel sulfide district, Tarkwa. Both have excellent access to renewable hydropower. Importantly, the government is incentivizing foreign direct investment. They are very encouraging of our strategy to keep value in country, and that comes with significant tax incentives. So the downstream refinery will not be paying any tax for the first 4 years and only 5% for the 9 years thereafter. The other key point to make here is that VinFast, a part of a large local conglomerate in Vietnam, has started its ambitions to make electric vehicles as well. So we are focused on creating an aligned strategy whereby we might see our own nickel stay in Vietnam and go into electric vehicles in Vietnam. We are focused on trying to work towards that kind of strategy. So Blackstone has a first mover advantage in a sense. The flow sheet from concentrate to NCM precursor, we will be one of the first to attempt this. The important thing to note, however, is the individual components, the technical components that the team has assembled are reliant on well-established technology. So being POX technology and solvent extraction. We've built our internal capacity, we've attracted significant talent to our business, and we've engaged with leading hydrometallurgists in the industry, including Wood, who will be leading our DFS, and ALS, who will be driving our pilot plant testing. So this slide is effectively the business model for the downstream refinery in one page. So we purchased nickel concentrate at circa 75% of metal spot price, and we upgrade it into a premium chemical product, which typically trades between 20 and 40% premium. So it becomes a margin-based business. Operating in Vietnam, we have significant competitive costs, low labor costs, cheap hydropower, which enables us to retain that margin. This just shows how the premium for NCM 811 has tracked historically. And as you can see, it typically trades between a 20 and 40% premium. We, in our study, used a premium of 20% at the lower end of that range. If you were to use something closer to 40%, which where it is today, the valuation of US $2 billion would increase to US $3.5 billion. This slide also shows, I guess, the robust nature of the asset. So the two biggest drivers of the valuation are the premium on the NCM, but also the purchase cost of the concentrate. And so what this slide shows that even if we were to pay a significantly higher amount on the concentrate, there is sufficient margin for a robust business case. So for example, if we use the 20% premium in the study, but pay 10% above market rates, you can see for that 10% above market rates for the concentrate, you'll see that the valuation is still around 1.5 billion. So this is demonstrating that because of the competitive environment that we're operating in and our ability to retain that margin, we have significant economics for the project. So with the downstream business, we've recently completed the PFS, which I've just gone through, but the next 12 months is very much focused around technical de-risking. And so we are entering into 2 phases of pilot plant testing. The first phase of pilot plant testing has commenced at ALS in Australia, and the second phase, which will be a much larger pilot plant, will be performed in Vietnam at a scale that is representative of the ultimate refinery that we are going to build. And we believe that this is an important step to de-risk the project and ensure that commissioning, which we intend to achieve around 2024, can be done smoothly. I guess Scott is in Korea at the moment and he's having significant discussions. And obviously the other angle, or the most important aspect, perhaps of the next 12 months, is securing the funding for the refinery. And we believe, as I said earlier, that will come through partnerships, and those conversations will continue to get advanced over the next 6 months as well. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Lunch is next, and we are back at 2:15.